Welcome to Tripping the Void with your host, Saraphine Hurley. Are you ready? Are you ready? Let's go.
Good afternoon, good morning, and to all those who are overseas, good evening, good morning, wherever you are. And welcome to Tripping the Void with myself, Saraphine Hurley. Thank you for tuning in today here on LNM Radio Network. And today we're talking about spirits, talking to spirits and honoring our dead. I thought it'd be an interesting close to this weekend. It seems to be we're talking about talking to the dead all weekend and things of that sort. So yeah, so I thought I would kind of land there today. And call-in number for today is 202-559-7943. Once again, that's 202-559-7943 if you want to call in today and talk about your experience with honoring the dead and or talking to spirits when we get to that. And yeah, or whatever else might pop up today. Yeah, so this weekend's been kind of hard, I know, for a lot of people, and myself included. Still here, as you can see, taking care of family. And last night, my mother had a really high blood sugar, and so I've been up most of the night, well, actually all night, watching her. Had to do Chujeo and Humulin and another couple of pills and watch how she was doing. And for those of you that don't know, my mother did collapse and had some gallbladder issues with her gallbladder fluid actually went gangrenous, and she's got this whole infection thing going on. So that's why I'm almost 5,000 miles from home. Well, 5,000 is a lot, but yeah, go for the southwestern kind of middlemost point of southern Florida, southwest Florida, and then draw a line directly to the Pacific Northwest up in good old Bellingham, Washington, which is north of Seattle, Washington. And you draw a diagonal line, so you go from the extreme southwest to the extreme northwest, almost directly diagonally. So that's why I'm here. And I'm going to continue to be here for a while until we have a better idea of what is going on here. And yeah, it kind of stinks. But at the same time, I'm making sure, and so is my sister, making sure that my mom's getting the care that she needs and all of that. But watching your parent go through the things that she's going through, and on Wednesday, I had to take her to the hospital. I took her bright and early because she was pretty distended in her sternum from her breastbone all the way down and basically blown up like a weather balloon, and took her to the hospital here, and they basically told me that it was normal for her. Normal for my mom. So it's normal for her to be suffering like that. Like, she hasn't blown up like that, period. And I figured it could have been partially from the heat and everything, because it had been super hot for a few days. Well, she's also starting to smell like the fluid that's coming out of her. And this is another concern, and because she does have a drain in, and I realize that adds to it as well. But it's a lot to take in, and it's not that I don't mind taking care of my parent or anything like that, but she's got some genuine concerns, like having that drain in over 2 months now, and my being here over 2 months, and oh my gosh, all the things that are happening. It's a lot for anybody. And so on this, being at home makes me think about where I come from, the people in my life, the friends that I have, the friends that have passed, family members that have passed. And so I was sitting in the car the other day with my sister, realizing that it'll be over 10 years this year since my father passed away. And I really didn't think about that. And it kind of was like, wow. So it made me kind of emotional and stuff. And then going to my sister's home and finding out that she'd recently had some help clearing out her garage and had come across some pictures. Now, she'd recently come across pictures that I had never ever seen before. Now, my father and mother, my parents, have been divorced since I was 13 years old. And so at some point, my father moved to Yuzinki Island in Alaska, which is very, very far away for those of you that don't know Alaska very well. It's an island off of Kodiak. So if you're going to Google it, that's where it is. And he's buried in a small cemetery, small Russian Orthodox cemetery, in which you can actually see the cemetery on a very popular program in the opening of that very popular program. So, which was kind of interesting. That's an interesting bit of trivia, at least for me. But yeah, my father's been pretty far away most of my adult life. And then he passed away of complications to a very rare form of pancreatic cancer that he contracted from serving 4 tours of Vietnam, being in contact with Agent Orange. So he didn't die in Vietnam, but he essentially did die for our country. So, but the good news part of that is that he did get 5 years longer than they originally gave him at Virginia Mason Hospital in Seattle. They actually airlifted him from Anchorage to Virginia Mason to receive top-notch care in their oncology department because they believed that he wasn't going to have long. And that weekend they gave him 3 days when we saw him. And that was one of the few times my sister and I saw our father. And at that point, he was so frail that I could have picked him up with one arm and flipped him to the next bed. Yeah. But after that, his wife, Angeline, took him home and gave him basically American Indian medicine and food and took very good care of him. And he lived that 5 years afterwards. And then looking back and then looking at that picture that my mom saw, which my mom had never seen this picture before either. It's a picture of my father playing his guitar, his ovation he had made for him. Because, yeah, my father's a musician too. So, and just the look on his face in the picture as he's strumming the strings of this guitar is like, wow. And this picture, I guess, was taken several days before he passed away. But it really moved me a lot to think not only of my own mortality, but the situation that I'm in, the situation that a lot of people find themselves in, you know, like is it fair for me to do this, that, A, B, or C, long-term care options for your family member, because I firmly believe that if you can, you try to take care of your family members as much as possible. You don't farm them off unless you absolutely have to. It's out of your care, like my grandmother. My mother's mother had to go into a long-term care facility because we all legitimately tried to take care of her. But she got dementia to the point because of lack of oxygen to her head that she was going a little bit crazy. And my niece Shay was actually starting to learn to walk at that point. And my grandmother had actually taken all of the kitchen knives out of the block in the kitchen and lined them up strategically around the edges of the kitchen tops, you know, the countertops. And so if Shay were to actually reach up on her tippy toes and try to touch that top of the counter, there was going to be a knife that fell on her face. And my grandmother normally would not do anything of the sort. But dementia made her do that. And that, I mean, there were several other things, like she'd flipped her car on purpose because all of us were running late. I mean, lots of things happened. So things do happen that make you have to get extra care, unless you can afford to have a nurse in your home. But yeah, so no points off. But we all tried. She ended up in a home, and we all felt the worst. but now I'm trying to actively take care of my mother, but my mother hates Florida. I was almost born in Florida. I was almost born in Jacksonville, actually, because my father was in the Navy. And my mother made my father drive 2 days straight so that I would not be born in a military hospital in Jacksonville. So I was born here in Washington State. So oddly enough, I end up back in Florida. So now that I am in Fort Myers Beach, Florida, my mother will not live with me. She refuses. I don't blame her that 7 months of her life that she lived in Jacksonville, but I've lived there 10 years. So living there 10 years and then looking at my home and looking at what's here, and I'm trying not to be too judgy, but at the same time, you know, like, it's not my decision, but at the same time, if I have to take care of my mom, where do you go from here, right? So those are the things on my plate right now, trying to figure out where I go. Ultimately, I will be getting something here. That was always the plan, but I don't know that I will be moving here permanently. I like to keep my options open pretty much, but I'm always close to water. So even if I stay in Fort Myers Beach, have a place here, go back and forth, we'll see. Because, you know, Florida's for the newlywed and the dearly dead. So I have lots of opportunities to work. So that's always fun. It's nonstop. So anyway, we're talking about honoring the dead, talking to spirits. Now, I did do some research on this, and this is the funny thing, that a lot of us, like I said, don't like the terminology. Ghost hunters or people who do research on contacting the dead, things of that sort. There's some WikiHow things on how to contact spirits, which I'm sorry, it makes me smirk a little bit, because it's not only, well, you could, but the first thing on the list should not be a Ouija board, even though, well, you can use those if you'd like, but we've all had our fair share of experiences with Ouija boards. Not all of them good. I can guarantee not all of them are going to be good. Excuse me. There is, somebody said, using a pendulum, lighting candles and saying prayers, meditating on the person themselves, trying to invoke the person, which I thought was a fairly dangerous kind of prospect, but it's me. That's one of those things that if I was a novice at any part of this, which I'm not going to say I'm an expert either, but if I was new, trying to find any of this stuff, I would be starting out light, like, can you hear me, Dad? You know, knock twice if you can hear me, or something like that. I don't know if anybody else has noticed, but I've noticed, especially since I've been here, because I don't know how many people are in Washington. I know a fair amount of people from the chat at LNM Radio. So I know I do have some Washington people in there, so hey, to my Washington people. But Washington State is a fairly quiet state when you live in the country. Unless you're on a main thoroughfare, it's really quiet. They make sure there's not a lot of street lights, things like that. One thing about the place that my mother lives is that the neighbors keep it fairly quiet. And so I go out at night and I sit. I'll sit and have a drink, and I'll look at the stars. You just basically search the sky and see if I can find anything. Or I just sit and look into the darkness sometimes, and yeah, sometimes darkness does look back. Like last night I was noticing, I call them static lights, because I don't know the origins of them, and some of them are different. They come out and they seem like they might be, you know, when you take something out of the dryer in the wintertime and it may not be all the way light in the hallway, and you pull something apart really fast. Now, when you do that, it makes sparks from static electricity, right? And the sparks just really dissipate quickly. these lights kind of resemble that a little bit, only these lights are like coming on just a little bit, like blinking in and then blinking out. Like just enough to get your attention and then fading out again. Almost like a firefly, but there's no fireflies here. Not up here, there isn't. Maybe in Eastern Washington, but I can't say that I've seen them in Eastern Washington, but I wasn't looking for them either. Other light anomalies, besides the static lights, I've seen orbs appear just as quickly as the static lights do. Lights that turn and in their speed, like gather speed and then dissipate, come back in, and then have a tail on the end of them. And then other things like anomalies, like not just in pictures, but in the last 3 days, I've seen, I don't know, has anybody ever seen a white shadow? I've been seeing a lot of white shadows lately, like white gray, where I saw an animal one the other day race across the porch, which I thought could have been a cat, but then I looked at it back and it wasn't an animal. And then the other one, I thought I heard somebody up on the porch. And I'm like, and I was cooking breakfast for my mother. And I turned and I looked again, and somebody had walked in, and now the door didn't move. Walked past the door. I could see the side of the shape of the shoulder down to the arm, down to the hip. And then it didn't form until it got to the middle part of the kitchen and kept walking, looked at me. I couldn't see the form of the face, but it looked at me and then turned slowly and deliberately and walked out diagonally towards the corner where the refrigerator is, kind of right directly through the corner of the kitchen. And I was like, that was interesting. And then yesterday, I was sitting there talking to my mother about what she needed because she wasn't feeling well. And I had my phone in my hand and I went to search something on my phone and I leaned forward and it felt like something walked through me. And you know that feeling when it does that. It was like I felt kind of violated by it because I was like, well, that was trippy. But has anybody else noticed anything like that? Like a peak in activity, like all of a sudden it's like a power surge of things that are happening. And I know that it's not just here because when I was at the hospital, it happened and I thought it was random, but whatever it is, excuse me, has followed and has the same behavior. I've been getting some really interesting EVPs, interesting, lots of stuff. So once again, the call-in number for today is 202-559-7943. That's 202-559-7943 if you'd like to join the conversation. But yeah, it's just kind of, it's not that it's bothering me, but it's making me think a lot about what exactly is happening, because things seem to be accelerating around me. And it's not just the actions and reactions of other people, it's everything. It is stuff that's happening, it's news, it's, like I said, it's pretty incredible to watch. And this is something, like I've invited you before, make sure that you're present in everything. Put your phone down. Turn down the radio if you have to for a second and listen. If you hear something, sit still for a second. Because sometimes you can find more things in silence than you can by hearing somebody's voice. Reading between the lines, or just sitting and thinking. Because I know myself, sometimes if I'm thinking about something and I give myself a clear moment to think in silence, sometimes that answer will just present itself to me. Kind of like a download, for lack of a better word. Like all of a sudden I'll be, oh, wait a minute. Huh, there it is. my little Rolodex of hate in my head. But all these experiences and all of these things, and I realized that being sleepless and all of the other things that happen around when my life's kind of in chaos as it is, right? It's not as chaotic as some would think. It's hard. And like, it's probably hard for my sister too. I'm not even probably. I know it is. Because my sister's got a broken foot and messed up knee from her accident. And she's got to run an entire household. I'm just kind of over here, but I'm over here because I elected to be over here. I can always get a plane ticket and take my happy self back to Fort Myers. Good old RSW. But, yeah. Some things are just starting to blow my mind a little bit, like people's attitudes. You would think people would be a little nicer in certain parts of the industry, like doctors, things of that sort, wanting to find care for your parent. I mean, think of it this way, even if you don't have a living parent, if it was you yourself or a loved one or your partner, wouldn't you want that person to have a quality of life sufficient enough for them to want to carry on to the best part, have their best day ever, instead of lope along existing with a drain attached to them, waiting for somebody to care enough to want to do surgery for them, to help them facilitate getting on with their lives. Because my mother may have health problems and stuff, yeah, but she can move on from this. She can get better. She could do some therapy and get better all the way around. There's people a lot older than her with more complicated problems walking around on their own. So I don't understand why it's so hard for people to think that my mother couldn't do it on her own. Maybe I'm just being silly. It's happened. But, yeah. So in all of this, we're thinking about spirits, human and otherwise. Do you ever think that some of these spirit lights are ghosts themselves? Or spirits? Elemental, maybe? Or maybe things that have never been human? Because I know I've been in contact with those before. I haven't actively tried to contact these guys, but they seem to actively be trying to contact me because they're waiting for me to even acknowledge that I can even see them, which is kind of strange. Well, not strange in my realm, because in my house, lots of things happen. But here at my mother's, I've been trying so hard to have things be as, funny air quotes, normal as possible. So I just don't. It's not that I don't believe it. It's more that I need to go get a handheld camera so that I can start taking active photographs and video. That would be better than my own handheld phone of these things that happen, since they're waiting long enough for me to photograph them or long enough for me to take a video. So have you ever had any experiences or currently experiencing anything of the sort? Voices audible or voices only found in EVP? Are you seeing that anything is getting accelerated around you, like paranormal activity of any kind? Or have you noticed people being, I don't know, spiritually attacked or spiritually influenced? I've seen plenty of that, especially lately. And once again, that call-in number is 202-559-7943. Would love to hear from you today. Definitely for people to weigh in on what exactly they think might be going on, or spirits in general. Another thing that I was thinking of is when they talk about the people who make all of these devices that we use to speak to spirits with, which I have lots of tricks in my bag as far as things. Why do you think I carry such a huge purse? My purses that I normally carry are pretty tiny. excuse me. The ones I carry when I'm traveling are gigantic. So I go from itty bitty, super, super dinky to, oh my gosh, that is a handbag. Yeah. Put Mary Poppins to shame. But I have batteries. I've got my industrial battery pack in there. I've got chargers. I've got all kinds of stuff. I'm kind of sad. But at least I'm prepared for things like being able to cover something up or be able to take pictures, or if my phone decides to die on me, that I can plug it in. So yeah, I've got a waterproof storm charger in my purse that lasts up to 8 hours, 4 days if you use it sparingly. So yeah, the last time that I was running around using all of this equipment, and I had the other experience where I was wondering, when I had something shoot through me, making me feel so awfully horrible, like absolutely inconsolably upset about what the heck I thought I was doing. Remember my first show when we were talking about paranormal responsibility? Yeah, that. Where I was just, and I was in that hotel 4 days. 4 days, and that happened. That all of a sudden it hit me. And it wasn't that it hit me, that something decided to school me. Like, what you doing? Because did you even think that for a second that some of us might not like the idea that you're doing stuff like this? Have we ever thought, going back to the people who make and manufacture the items that we use for speaking, bridging that gap between speaking outwardly and speaking inwardly with the spirit world, whether or not these devices actually work? We've actually proven that they really do, in real time even. And how do you think spirits actually see us? How do you think, besides gathering power, do you find that they have the ability to actually speak with us? Do you think they're always in active flux of trying to gain the amount of power that they need to speak with us? Or is it a magic kind of thing that these ladies and gentlemen have been able to formulate these spirit boxes and other items to tailor to the spirit world in order to bridge the gap? Because some of these items are very interesting. I've only been able to work with a few. I mean, I drool over several things, but oh my gosh, if I could afford half the equipment I look at, it's not just wanting to afford it. It's the fact that, do I really want to spend $11,000 or $12,000 on something that essentially that I can't live in or eat? At the moment, that's one of those questions I can ask, since I'm living out of a carry-on bag in my mother's office on a daybed. So I got to weigh that out a little bit. But other than that, how was the play, Mrs. Lincoln? Have we thought about how things reach out to us, how they see us? Do we look just as odd to them as they do to us? Do we appear differently to them, just like they appear differently to us? Has anybody ever given that any thought? It's like, how I'm looking in the camera right now, right? And I appear a certain way to myself, but I'm going to appear differently to somebody else. And to somebody else, I'm going to appear differently as well. But how do I appear to somebody who has crossed over? Or how do I appear to somebody who has never been a human before? Do I appear as an anomalous light? Do I appear as a solid form? And would knowing how that even works help us do more research to better our chances of getting better contact from beyond? What do you think? I think it definitely would, if we understood it a lot more. but it's like every time we get a step forward, we take like 5 steps backward because skeptics and all. But in order for us to better ourselves going forward, it's kind of good that we have hecklers. It's kind of good that we have haters, because what do? Besides be a pain in the neck, they make us better, don't they? They make you stay on your game. They make you more polished. They make you essentially be your best self. So when you're sitting there thinking about the people in your life that get you down, maybe you should sit back and smile at some point and go, well, maybe I did something right, because haters. Because if it upsets somebody enough for them to say something horrible to you, and that's their only reason for getting up in the morning, then I guess you've made it further than you thought. Like, if I'm your only reason to get up and say something nasty, then wow, not only do you need to raise the bar a little bit, but thanks. But going back to our spirit friends, have you tried reaching out to loved ones? Or have loved ones tried reaching out to you? I know in my family, we have a very rich tapestry of spiritualism. It's actually, things happen in our family. It's kind of like ghost stories passed down, and it's an active part of our culture on both sides of the family, my father's side and my mother's side. We have the Celtic side, and then we have the Basque side. Katie, you have a call?
Yeah, I'm trying to get on with Tripping the Void.
Hello, this is Saraphine. How can I help you?
Hi, I was listening to your show, and my name's Mike. I've listened to your show on and off for a while, and ever since you started. And you're talking about, having, I guess, experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And I live out in Vegas on the west side of town, where there's a lot of old abandoned mines and stuff. And back a few decades, when I was much younger and a little more wilder, was out with a group. We're having what we call a pallet party. We get pallets and burn them and have beers and whatnot. And as I left, I guess I picked up a hitchhiker I didn't know I picked up, because when I got to my place, and the way the room was set up or my bedroom set up, is that right above it is a pull lamp. And when I laid down, it was just like instantaneous. It felt like there was someone laying on top of me that weighed, a ton. And so I opened my eyes, and what really freaked me out or semi-freaked me out, is the light that I turned off is now on. Wow. And I'm looking on one side, and I can't see anybody that's like pushing me down. And then I turned my head into the pillow because I was on my stomach, and I look on the other side, and nothing. And at that moment, I said, because it's just my nature, I'm going to fight no matter what. And I said, this ain't working. I don't give a damn. You're not, sorry about that. I'm not allowing this to happen. And I gathered my strength and pushed, got my energy in my arms, and I pushed up. So I was like sort of standing up or on my knees. And as soon as I came up and I opened my eyes, everything was gone and the light was off, and I never touched it. Wow. For it to go on or to go off. And like, and ever since then, instances, it's like I'll feel something, but it's more like a probe kind of thing. You know, this is over years, but the probe is like, you know how it is when you touch something really hot.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like that. I'm like the hot plate. You know, you touch it, oh shit, it's hot. You know, and it'll wake me up, and I'll look around, and I kind of get, you know, the spidey senses kick off, but then it retreats really quick. So I don't know if I've just like, you know, they know that I'm going to fight and I'm not an easy target for whatever they plan on doing, whether it's like a conscious, if you know, psychic vampire that's trying to drain me of my energy or not, I don't know. But yeah, so I thought I'd share that with you and just, you know, see what you thought and if anybody in the audience thought.
Now, Mike, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Now, did you get a look at this hitchhiker or whatever? Did you get or was there any smells, anything that you noticed about this experience?
Well, I was pretty buzzed when I came into my place and into my bedroom. So no, not really. You know, it is probably the fog of, you know, the beers I was drinking and all that. And but the funny thing was that, you know, I go in, I do my stuff to get ready for bed, and then I guess, you know, I get on the queen size waterbed, I reach up, yank the chain, and as soon as I lay down, bam, and my eyes open up, and going from a really hardcore buzz, I was, bam, instantaneously sober, and was sober for the rest of the night. I mean, I tried to, yeah, serious buzzkill. And I, you know, even, you know, I did try to go back to sleep, but it didn't, you know, it wasn't that successful, and I had to work the next day too. So, but yeah, I never noticed any smells, but then I've got bad allergies, and you know, I could have, and you know how when you got the beer goggles on, things are all fuzzy anyways, and but I didn't really notice anything other than, you know, like I said, it is almost like an elephant on me pushing, and it wasn't just like pushing in like on my back or on my shoulders. The weight was on me from head to toe. And
so it was like you're being held down, or like somebody sat on you, like put the entire weight of their body on you.
Yeah, it was like someone who is extremely dense and heavy just laid on top of me, because as soon as my head hit the pillow, that's when it was like, you know, I went into sort of on my knees in a position, laid down with my face into the pillow, and it was like instantaneous. As soon as my head hit the pillow, bam! It was like, you know, someone was trying to, I don't know if it was a physical assault, a sexual assault, or psychic or anything. But, you know, after I looked to my left, then to my right, and, you know, moved my eyes and head as much as I could to see if there's anybody standing or kneeling on the bed with me, there was nothing. And like I said, the light was on, and it's, you know, I know that I turned the light off, and then, like I said, when I pushed myself back up, yeah, everything's gone. No, there was nothing there. I turned the light on and I looked around. I looked in my closet. I looked through the rest of the house, and it was like, okay, that's kind of screwed there. You know, it kind of shook me up a little bit. You know, I wasn't like scared or anything. It just kind of like when you get in a minor fender bender and it rattles your cage.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of how I felt. You know, I was like, wow.
So it didn't feel outwardly sexual or anything like that. It just felt oppressive.
Yeah. You know, and that's why I think it was probably like, you know, how they say these spirits that come from people that they're always around someone that's like a candle or a light bulb of energy, and they don't want to leave this realm and pass on. So they seek others as sort of like a way to stay here on I guess the prime material plane instead of passing on. And they'll look for anybody that's, you know, lit up like a glow stick. And I think that's what it was. They were, I don't know if it was more than one, but like I said, there's a lot of abandoned mines out on the west side of Las Vegas, and some of them still to this day they don't know how many there are, and they're not all covered or blocked off or filled in.
Wow.
Occasionally some people will fall in there, and that's it. And then, of course, you had back in the you know, the dark days of Las Vegas, the mobsters would, you know, that was their landfill, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe Jimmy Hoffa's there, huh?
Oh no, he's supposedly in a football stadium around a goalpost, you know, or maybe I've also heard 50-yard line. So, yeah, but yeah, I've had instances where I could feel, you know, the spidey senses kick off,
Mm-hmm.
and you're going, what's going on? You're looking, but you try to do that passive look, because if you do the hard look, obviously you're going to look right through them.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, and seeing how I wear glasses, I usually, when I get the spidey sense kick off, I take my glasses off to kind of do that, you know, half lid, or look like I was looking over my glasses or under my glasses or off to, you know, out of the corner of my eye to catch that fleeting, like you're talking about, the sparks in the air, that just like you said, like static electricity.
Mm-hmm.
And I just find it, you know, really cool. You know, that stuff that you mentioned, you know, it's kind of happened to me. You know, it's probably because I've tried to insulate myself away from certain things, because I don't need to get triggered. Me getting triggered is not a good thing for anybody around me. So I try to keep a very, you know, stable, mellow, and if anything happens, it's like, it's just not good. I try to keep that, but I guess because I'm a fighter, you know, that's why they don't come at me like they used to, I guess.
Well, that's good, you know. But
yeah.
I thank you so much for your story and calling in today, Mike. I really appreciate it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for listening.
For listening to Tripping the Void on LNM Radio Network, and yeah, thanks again. Have a great weekend.
You too.
Bye, Mike.
Bye.
Well, thank you, Michael, for calling in. And once again, that call-in number is 202-559-7943 if you'd like to join the conversation today. Katie, was there any other callers?
Not at this time, no.
All right, thank you. And so, yeah, we had talking about that. I've heard of a lot of people. I have not had that happen to me where something has actually come down on top of me, excuse me, while I was laying down. But recently, in my last trip to Augustine, I actually, in one of the antique shops that I was in, had something come down on me. They kept telling me that there wasn't anything malevolent in this place. And the weird thing about that was from the moment that I walked in the place, I felt like I needed to go on my knees and be sick because yeah, there was something oppressive that kept, and it felt like a really large man. And I am a tall woman. I'm not gigantically tall. I like to say I'm 5'10"-ish. I'm actually 5'11". So my daughter's taller than I am. She's 6'2". So yeah. So for something to be large enough to push down on me hard enough for it to affect me, kind of tripped me out. And there's IR footage of me standing there against this wall, feeling like you can see, like, it looks like I've got hands on my shoulders pressing down on me, and I'm audibly saying, "Stop it. Take your hands off me. Stop it." And that continued for a good little while. Excuse me. Standing there in the darkness with the other people in the crew, and the woman in the side telling me that, oh, there's nothing malevolent, and I'm like looking up going, are you sure about that? Because this guy really wants me out of here. Katie, was there anything else?
Nope, not at this time.
All right. The only reason I ask is because my application acted the same way as it did with the last caller, so I was just wondering. So, yeah, with that, feeling like something was on me before I had that feeling like something was on top of me, I actually felt little hands on my ankles, that there were children in this hallway that we were standing in. And a couple of them had already done I call it the flashlight trick, where, you take a mag light and you unscrew it and screw it back on just lightly enough to where that next touch or so is going to hitch it over to off. Well, the other one dimmed significantly. We had two of them, and the other one went completely off. And then I'm just standing there, and I'm starting to feel this cold sensation. And, the goosebumps and stuff that come with it. But all of a sudden, I started to feel little fingers, like, ticking up my ankles. Slowly, slowly, slowly. And then, all of a sudden, I felt the fingertips, and they were so ice cold. And it was like whomever it was afraid but wanted to touch me at the same time. And I'm like, it's okay, you can touch me. And everybody is like, whoa. And I'm standing there like, whoa, well, it's not unusual for me to be touched. I'm touched in my own home all the time by spirits. I've been dragged out of my bed. I've been thrown against the wall. I've had things thrown at me. I've been bitten. Like I touched on another show, last summer, I actually had my pet cat, I believe, may have been possessed, because all of a sudden she was sleeping, and you know how your cat sleeps next to you. I was playing a game, I believe. Yeah, I was playing an actual video game, and she was just sleeping next to me, Jubilee, curled up on the arm of my chair. Nothing unusual, right? Happens all the time. Well, all of a sudden, she raises up on her back, like on her back feet, like a standing rabbit, flat with her feet, right? And then she levels her ears out, like flat, flat, flat to her head, coils back, and starts striking me like a snake. Not kidding. Wish I was. Her ears are back, her eyes are closed, she hasn't opened her eyes at all, and she keeps striking me. And every time she strikes me, it's in my upper arm. And every time she strikes me, she sinks her fangs all the way deep into my arm. She does this 9 times. 9. Okay. Doesn't wake up. I try to get up, and every time I try to get up, she's still striking me, and I don't want to hurt my cat, but I'm at the same time I need her off of me because there's blood everywhere at this point. I'm like, think fast, what am I going to do? And so I automatically, between her strike, I go to try to stand up, in which she grabbed me with one of her paws and then grabbed me in my thumb. You can actually, well, you can't see it probably, but she grabbed between my cartilage. She got her nails between my cartilage and my bone on my thumb, and 2 of her nails actually dug all the way in. I now can't put my thumb all the way to the middle of my hand, which, whatever. But she hooked it, and I couldn't think of how to get her unhooked, and I just dropped my hands. I'm like, I'm already bleeding at this point, so if I just drop my hands and make her drop, I mean, it's better than me trying to, like, try to hit her, because I didn't want to hit my cat. Because she's still got her eyes closed at this point. She drops to the ground after I stand up, and she gives me this look, like, all of a sudden she's on the floor. You hear the thud because I've stone tile. It's Florida. So, and she looks up at me and gives me this really strange look, like wide-eyed, and then splits, runs all the way up the stairs. And for a second, I'm trying to get myself together, and I look at my arm. There's blood everywhere. I've got puncture wounds all over my arm, and I'm trying to not lose it completely. I go upstairs to the bathroom by my bedroom, and I look in the mirror, and I need to upload the pictures so that you can see it. But the scar I have on my upper left arm looks like a human bite mark. Her bite marks go into the pattern of a human mouth. Not kidding. So that happened last summer, and oddly enough, that was after a trip back from the St. Augustine as well. This time she didn't do anything that last time, but I didn't do the trip before that was mundane in comparison to this one, so I wonder how that correlates. Once again, the call-in number is 202-559-7943 if you want to join in our chat or join, give us your story as to if you have been attacked by a spirit or have any spirit communication lately. I know myself, the spirits always try to get in contact with me one way or the other. At my own personal home, I see things walking by all of the time, shadow people, other things, which I won't say the name, but which I see a lot. Other anomalous forms and lights. There's always lights. Particular ones that happen at certain times, not always, but like close to a certain time every day, certain things happen. Has anybody ever noticed that in their home or as of lately, anything happening? I know, like I said, a lot of things are ramping up, and I don't know how if they're all go side by side with something, or if they're all, if there's something that I've missed. I know a lot of other people are finding things, certain things in their lives are either coming together or they're coming apart. People are at certain stages of, I know people keep telling me Mercury retrograde and this, that, and the other thing, but I'm talking aside from those things, astrologically, or, I'm talking, are you present enough to realize some of the things in your life that are maybe influenced by spirits? Like maybe you do have a spirit that's actually trying to talk to you. you know that there's several websites devoted to talking about how spirits would be trying to get a hold of you, like sending a bird, like a bird to come by and let you notice it, or somebody said a butterfly, or other messages. Like, let's say that you and the person had an agreement on, if that person went before you, if they were to pass before you, or you them, that you would give them this kind of a signal. Now, do you have that kind of a pact with anybody? Did anybody try to get a hold of you? I had somebody get a hold of me on several occasions. I know that I have somebody trying to get a hold of me that I'm trying to ignore, but it's pretty bad when you're ignoring things and then other friends are picking up their EVPs. Now that's trippy. Super trippy. It's like, okay, quit ignoring me because now I'm going to bother your friends. Have you ever noticed that? Or haven't had anything like that happen where you've had somebody who also does paranormal research and had that person come over and speak to you and go, hey, I know that you knew this person. This person's trying to get a hold of you. Or do you have any idea why the spirit is trying to get a hold of you? Because this person really wants to get a hold of you. I know I've personally had several instances of that. So definitely something there. So on that note, we'll go ahead and take a quick break. And thank you for listening to Tripping the Void with me, Saraphine Hurley. And after the break, once again, the call-in number is 202-559-7943. Thanks for tuning in.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
The question for life on Mars has been answered in 1976. But ever since then, NASA's not wanted to go back and replicate those tests. Instead, they'd rather go search for signs of life instead of actually finding it. Let's all make NASA change their policy and letting them know that we demand them on the upcoming Martian rovers of the Mars Rover 2020 and the ExoMars rover. We would like Dr. Gil Levin's life detection controlled label release experiments on board those rovers. It is about time. Is it about our fate? Please join the Dr. Gil Levin's Martian Revelation Life Validation Campaign. Please go to www.thefacesofmars.com and scroll down the page and click on the glowing, blinking link for Dr. Gil Levin's Martian Revelation Life Validation Campaign. You will get to read all the information of what this is about. Please support us and please support the campaign as a White House petition is going to be in place. And this is just to let know to you all of what's coming, so when the day comes, you all go to sign it, because we need 100,000 signatures within 30 days for it to flow President Trump's desk, as well as the chair of the National Space Council, Vice President Pence. Please join the Martian Revelation, and please help Dr. Gil Levin in his quest for validation and vindication of life on Mars.
Available now, Troll Spray. Do you have problems with trolls? Do you constantly find yourself turning on the light of truth and find they come out of the woodwork after you? Give your trolls a quick squirt of Troll Spray and you'll be amazed at how quickly they flee. Troll Spray has been tested on all of the different types of trolls: shills, false prophets, doomsayers, sock puppets, and of course, those ever fearsome hostile radio show hosts. It works on them all. Get Troll Spray today, available only at LNM Radio Network. Spray the trolls away with troll spray.
Why subscribe to Late Night in the Midlands, you ask? Well, I'll tell you why. Late Night in the Midlands covers everything, and through the thousands of expert guests who have joined Michael Vera on his show come pieces of the big puzzle, which started many years ago. Michael and his guests reveal information dating back to the beginning of time. To this very moment, Michael Vera not only brings you the best guests with the best information, but Michael is not afraid to call out those who are less than honest. You see, in this day and age, we need a radio show we can count on and a radio host we can trust to expose the truth one show at a time. So become a late nighter and subscribe now. Talk radio like no other. Late Night in the Midlands, bringing the truth back to talk radio.
Great fear and trembling shall seize them, even to the ends of the earth. The earth shall be hurt, and all things will try and perish, while judgment shall come upon all, even upon all the righteous. Behold, he comes with 10,000s of his saints, to execute judgment upon them and destroy the wicked. Yet as God has appointed, so are all things brought to pass. No peace shall be to you.
Do you think social media is the end-all be-all? Do you live and breathe by Facebook and other platforms? Do you spend hours and hours endlessly going through posts by alleged friends in an endless quest to have a life? You need Fake Away, available exclusively through the LNM Radio Network. Our crack scientific teams have worked tirelessly to perfect this product and have made it available to you through this limited offer. Fake Away can solve the problems suffered by you and many others. It can help you understand you have been snowed by the fake media, the social media biases you encounter every time you click refresh, and even help your hair grow by keeping you from pulling it out over the smallest offenses. Get Fake Away today, only through LNM Radio Network. Fake Away is not for shills, disinfo agents, lovers of politicians who keep screwing the country, constant end-of-the-world predictors, liars, hostile radio show hosts, or snowflakes.
Well, welcome back to Tripping the Void with Saraphine Hurley, and of course I'm Saraphine Hurley. Thanks for hanging out during the break, and once again, our call-in number for today is 202-559-7943 if you'd like to join in. Also, we have our chat room at LNM, Late Night in the Midlands Radio Network chat room. If you haven't already checked it out, and just as a reminder here that we wouldn't be here at LNM and have all these awesome shows without you guys. So if you could please like, subscribe, donate, we love that you're able to do that for us, because in order to pay bills, you know, like MV says, the practicality of the situation is that we only run by ability to pay those bills. So we do thank you in advance, and thank you for those donations that have come in previously, but we definitely have got to run in and pay bills as well again. So yeah, like, subscribe, and donate. That donate part's fairly important, but the listening part is even more important. So thank you for that like, subscribe, and listen. We definitely appreciate everything that you guys do, and being able to hang out and get to know some of you here at LNM, especially in the chat room. You guys are awesome and amazing. So thanks again. And yeah, we're talking about communicating with spirits. And I know that we had a caller earlier who shared his story. And thanks again for giving us a call. And our lines are open. This is a live show. If you'd like to call in, unfortunately, I can't read the chat room and be live. Well, I could, but I probably need glasses to do that. And since that's another topic here, the spirits here like to move things. Like when I was had my show the other day, excuse me, a couple weeks ago, when I was fortunate enough to be able to sit in for MV and speak with the author guest, who's The Devil is Real book, was really an interesting topic of discussion. I was getting ready to answer a question, and all of a sudden my Skype and everything messed up because the modem went, I'm not even kidding, flying off of the counter here, unplugged all of the plugs in the back that could be not, that actually clipped in, flew out of the back of it. And the modem itself went flying down into the filing cabinet. And I was like, all right. So it's not something that really shocks me a bunch because stuff like that has happened over the course of my life. So it was like, okay, so you want to show me what you're doing, but all you're doing is being a pain in the neck right now. So, excuse me, if you'd like to elaborate on the reason why you are acting out in anger, or a spirit that needs time out, apparently. Was that the entity from his book acting out because we're speaking about it, or is it another entity here that's miffed because I'm not giving the amount of attention that I could be giving it, and so it's acting out like a 3-year-old child, freaking out and having a tantrum? But that's not the only instance of something just freaking out and flying off. I was actually helping my mother, and all of a sudden her water bottle and her sleep apnea machine actually flew off. And I didn't even know that her machine split into 2 pieces. I know, my bad, but I didn't know that it did. And it does. So it went crashing, and I'm not saying like it just went boink onto the floor. It went like up and slam, like violently down into the floor, along with her water bottle soon after it. So it went kerslam, the thing went into 2 pieces, and then her water bottle, the top flipped off of it midway, it went crash against the floor. So, and we're both sitting there, and I'm like, I didn't touch it because I'm on the other side of the room. My mom is in her chair, so, and my mom's a hobbit, so I'm not kidding. My mom's not even, well, she likes to say she's 5-ish feet tall, but she's a little shorter in stature, and as most things are to me. And come on, she sits in the chair, her feet don't even touch the floor. So I guess it's better than myself, who I sit in her car and I sit up and my head touches the ceiling. So there's worse things that can happen, right? But I set things down, like when before my mother was here, like a week before I brought my mother home, I'd set her car keys down, and they're on a small silver carabiner clip, right? As most people here in the Pacific Northwest carry around carabiner clips for the keys. So I set it down on the bed because I'm putting my purse down and putting everything down. I'm getting ready to walk out to the living room, and I turn around and the keys are gone. And I'm like, I just set the keys down. Excuse me. And as all of us would do, you're in a home that's not yours. Yes, it's granted, it is my mother's home, right? I'm looking around, I'm listening. I'm like, is there somebody here with me? Because the keys were plain to see. I mean, my bed is made. There's no reason why you cannot see. Okay. I'm looking down, I'm looking everywhere, and I'm like, I don't even know if my mother has a spare set. So at this point, I am trying my best not to panic. I've been trained to not panic. So my first thing is to just kind of, all right, remove yourself from the situation and think logically for a second. Where did the keys go? Maybe I dropped them on the floor. Nope, because in my mind, I knew I dropped them right on the white bedspread. Okay. Because I saw them. I legitimately saw them. I heard them hit, and then I turned around and they were absolutely gone. So I go out into the living room because I've torn apart what I can tear apart in here. And I sit in her chair. I'm like, where could the keys have gone? And I'm looking all over because I'm like, I got nothing. Because I don't even, like I said, at this point, I don't even know if she has extra keys. Whew. And I walk back down the hallway and back in here slowly because I'm just kind of scanning as I go. Like, yeah. So, now I'm looking wait a minute, on the edge of the bed, and I'm like the very tippy end of the bed is the carabiner with the keys, and it's like this. Here's the carabiner clip, right? The keys are like this, like they're like something had just kind of laid them there and bounced them off the edge, and I'm like, that's really strange. And I'm like, so teach me. So I made sure to clip it. So I clip it to the end, right? And so I'm never without the keys clipped to the first part, right? So like, all right, bugger, learn that. Hopefully you've got fingers so that you can take it off of there if you're so inclined, but you're not going to just flip my keys away. So they disappeared and they reappeared because they weren't in the room at all. And I flipped everything around. I like to think that I'm a logical thinking person. I like to think that I am. I mean, maybe my first mistake is that I did think, but I thought. And yeah, so that was a near brush. And the other things have disappeared where I've put it down, like I'll put a glass down like a coffee cup, and a coffee cup disappear. Put the coffee cup down, went to go get a tea bag to put in the beaker, right? You would think simple enough. Nope. Turned around, coffee cup was gone. And I'm like, here we go again. It's like, why are you taking things from me? It's you may think it's funny because I'm sleepless and everything, but I'm not amused at this point. So I'm going back, going forth, and I'm like, okay. At this point, I'm about ready to go into tears because I think I'm going to go nuts. And I turn around, and the coffee cup itself is actually on the edge. There's actually a little tiny foyer when you walk into my mom's house. And there's like a little, it almost looks like a vanity with a cupboard at the end. And the beaker's actually sitting on the edge again. So this is also like the keys were on the tippy edge. Like it's about ready to fly off. Like somebody had just barely put it on the edge and before I could turn around. And it's like, is there fairies in here? What is going on? Because I just don't get it. It just, it does make you a little mad when you're already in a stressful situation and you've got things that people question taking things from you that you knew were for sure there, and then they're not the next. Or the TV that comes on by itself, or the lights that go on and off, or those things. So these things happen to you? Have you noticed these things are kind of becoming more active, like in the last month, weeks? Things like that I've noticed, like along with the lights, I've noticed. Once again, the call-in number is 202-559-7943 if you'd like to discuss your stories or anything else that you might want to talk about having to do with our spirit friends or spirit not so much friends. I mean, what do you do when you have spirits that decide that they're going to mess with you a little bit, which I wouldn't mind under normal circumstances. In fact, I'd be running tests actively, but this is my mom's house, so where do I draw the line? You know, I've got to, because I'm trying to be respectful. So I ran an EVP session the last week and a couple of days ago as well. Excuse me. And with that, I'm like, I'm getting all kinds of crazy names. I'm getting things happening. I had one of them mention my daughter, which kind of flipped me out a little bit. I had, yeah, so I tend to post a lot of the stuff that I get. I don't always use apps, but when I'm traveling, I do. Like, here I am. When I'm at Augustine, I don't always, but if I'm resting or other things, I will use some of the apps that I have purchased that I know to work really well. Do we have a caller, Katie?
No, we don't.
Oh, sorry. I thought I heard something. Maybe I'm going mad. Just a little bit. But I only really use apps that I know have been calibrated. Not only that they've worked, and I've heard other investigators actually say that they or actually actively use them and have success with them. But to use an app before I go out in the field, I very rarely will field test something. I will do a isolated test in my own home or not too far from my own home to see if it'll work. And this is one of the best apps that I've ever used. I don't have permission to speak about the app that I actually use because it was experimental for quite a while and now it's in active use. So I'll have to ask if I can actually talk about it. But I have posted pictures of the app that I use. So for those of you familiar with the hunting equipment that a lot of us use, that's the one that I use on my phone. Well, I have 3 on my phone, the traditional one and then all the other toys that I use. Yeah, so I mean, what do you use to speak with spirits? Do you use a Ouija board? No points off. Some people find them very useful. Some people have a lot of success with them. I'm just not one of those people. When I was a younger person, I'd used a Ouija board. My first and second experiences were not the greatest. The second experience, I was at a party because, as you know, my parents were musicians. And the kids ended up in a bedroom playing or whatever until it was time to, find a quiet spot and go lay down before, parents went out. But these were lawn and garden parties, so they went on for a while. And so us kids got into a fair amount of trouble. There was this time where we'd gotten hold of a Ouija board. And I believe I had to be about 8 or 9. Yeah, I had to be about 8 or 9 years old. And I'd just come upstairs because there was a set playing that I really enjoyed. So my dad and mom allowed me to be down for that part of the set. And I basically sat in front of the drum kit. And, well, kind of not in front, but kind of to the side. And listened to the set and then went back upstairs and I came in and everybody's huddled around this game board and I'm like, what the heck? Oh, I know this. And so we all put our hands on the planchette and things go. And the long story short is that somebody was contacted who had been burned in a fire apparently. And I'm going to use bunny air quotes on that because the more I look back, the more I think is that it could have been a spirit that may have been lying to us, or it could have been the right thing. I don't know. But the more I think on it, I'm thinking it might have been something lying to us. But this thing had the power to not only knock things over, which I'd never seen. I'd seen other things before, but I'd never seen anything knock anything over with that kind of power before. But I'd also never seen anything like a lamp get melted. This was a plastic, like 1960s style lamp, and this was in the 80s. like late 80s. Excuse me. That this lamp, this bedside lamp that looked like a bunch of like yellow knots put together, all of a sudden we'd smelled this weird smell, and we were getting, I remember like it was yesterday, the message was, we burned, or I burned, or we burned. And as I say that right now, my left foot is starting to get cold, which is strange. And all of a sudden, the little girl, Stephanie, whose home it was, her bedside table lamp was starting to melt. And I'm talking like, not just like a little bit, I'm talking like candle wax, like an active flame on the top of a candle starting to tip over onto itself. Warp, melting. Like there was some heat, like pyrokinetic heat from that. That blew my mind. Fortunately, they were able to unplug the lamp and get it outside and stuff. But aside from that, after the contact with that lamp and that we burned, and the planchette actually went spinning. And I'm not talking like, it went skittering from underneath the hands that were holding it into the wall. I mean, it actually bounced off. It hit that hard. And I know a lot of us have stories very similar to that. And it's like, after hearing all of these things, I don't know how Parker Brothers still manages to sell so many pieces of Ouija board equipment. I mean, the history and everything else really, really intrigues me. But going on, knowing as an adult that using Ouija boards and stuff, for me, hasn't been the greatest of experiences, that going forward with that, knowing that other people have also not have had the greatest of experiences, they border on the dramatic or the traumatic, that, yeah. So either people like to either edge in and really be skittering on that fine line, or begging for something to happen, or, you know, you got to wonder what the heck sometimes, right? Just got to wonder. Excuse me. Now, other modes of contact besides Ouija board, like I said, invocation of the spirit, which was listed in the top 3 of the WikiHows. And I'm like, why would you want to go from Ouija board and then jump up to invocation of the spirit, which is normally what you do when you're trying to do something entirely different, not contact Grandma Josephine or something. I don't know. Do you have a Grandma Joe? Or Grandma Samantha or something? Why would you jump from that to invocation? Because, yeah, I'm not cool with just being myself right now, because I need to totally, legitimately be possessed by a family member. Why would you do that? I mean, if you want to do that, that's really all well and good. But if you don't know what you're doing, that would be so intense. And what if you couldn't get out of it? Has anybody had this happen? Have you had a loved one come in on you and either come through you or manifest themselves through you? Have you? Because I'd definitely like to hear about that. I know in my family, my grandmother used to tell the story of her aunt. And my family's big on holidays and things of the sort. And her aunt had a loved one die. And it was her sister. And her sister and her had a pact that said that if one of them were to pass before the other one, that they were going to definitely try to contact each other, right? And that for the time frame, I mean, this would have been kind of a little bit, or about, no, it would have been about the same time as the spiritual movement, that the spiritual movement was happening. That would be why they were talking about, you know, if you were to go before me and this and that. Because I come from people who allowed their children to read and allowed women to be educated, things of that sort. My great uncle had one of the largest personal libraries in the state for the time period, which had to be fairly impressive. Now, going forward into that, so her sister falls ill right before the holiday season. They just recently, I guess the ground just recently froze over. The grave is still fresh. They're baking cakes for holiday and apparently somebody's wedding celebration, maybe, because there's a lot of cake and a lot of pastries or whatever. So, and the subject of her sister had been brought up, and I guess Emma, her name was Emma Priscilla, had made mention of, oh yeah, we talked about this and that she was going to contact me and I've been waiting for contact. And everybody's like, whatever. You can imagine that people are like, yeah, just dream on, because that's like going to happen. Like monkeys are going to fly out of my posterior, right? And they're whatever, because Wizard of Oz wasn't even written yet. So anyway, so I'm sure that she probably either laughed it off or just shook her head and was like, you know what, my sister's going to contact me because we're close like that, right? Because I know that if vice versa, my sister were to go or I were to go, I would try to contact her and she would try to contact me, because, you know, as much as we annoy each other to death, we will be annoying each other in death as well. So that'll be fun. So anyway, she goes to bed. Okay, they've done all these beautiful cakes, cookies, and whatever, and they're all set up, ready for the next day because they've got this big whatever is happening, right? And I guess my great grandmother, I can't remember the succession of that because my brain is on not even an hour of sleep. So yeah, there's screaming coming from the kitchen. Can you imagine the commotion? And people are running around crazy and nobody knows what's happening. There's glass. There's glass found in one of the cakes. Well, fortunately it was found because there's glass that's been cut from the front window, which was recently replaced after the death of the sister. Something happened to the glass. I'm not exactly sure what happened to it, but it did get broken. Now, Emma tells the story of coming into her mother flipping out over these beautiful cakes, because they didn't just make stuff. It was picture perfect and set up and nice. And I can understand why she would be flipping out, because now after they've worked for days to get this all set up, now there's and I'm going to recant it because they've been doing this forever. Perfectly round circles of glass, which for the time frame you'd have to be a glass cutter to get it that perfect. Stuck in the top of the cake, and when on discovery, because they did look through a couple of the other pastries and stuff, that they did find several other perfect circles of glass in the interior and exterior of these items. I'll wait. I wish I was making it up. It's actually, I've heard this story since I was little, and knowing that this is something that's been handed down from my grandmother's aunt, that it's kind of like, wow, that she got the answer to her question, that Emma knew that her sister was there, and that continuing onward through the family, that there's been other forms of contact. I mean, it kind of blows your mind to know that contact can be made and received. And now if we could just get a mark of all of these things that happen, and action, reaction, besides journal or note or somebody writing a book about it, or this or that. I mean, have you had any kind of thing happen? We still are taking active calls. This is a live show if you'd like to call in with your experiences. But unless you want to just listen to my voice, that's cool too. So, so yeah, I'm willing to have any kind of active discussion, even if it's on the downswing. I mean, if you want to call in as a skeptic, definitely show me how I'm wrong, because I'd be interested. You just tell me. So anyway, going throughout our lives here, knowing that not many people go forward in their lives and not hear of ghost stories or contact with the spirit world or people actively wanting to have contact with their loved ones, having crossed over. Like, I know for me, for my father, I spoke to him the afternoon and the night before he passed away. And I knew the morning he passed. It's like I went through the motions and I just knew. I don't know how I knew. I just knew that I got my outfit on. I was working as a personal, actually, I was working in as a excuse me, as an office manager for a personal loan group. And I won't mention the company, but it was a big company. So I was putting my suit on, you know, my skirt, my heels, the whole nine, getting my hair done. And I kept checking my phone. I'm like, I've got the curling wand in my hair and I'm like checking out. And I'm like, anybody call my phone yet? And my mom, because I was also taking care of my mom at the time, because my mother had lost her job. And so my mom had worked for over 31 years for the same company, but she lost her job and she would have been able to feed herself if I didn't move in with her. So I moved in and helped her pay bills and stuff like that. So yeah, I've always kind of been helping my mom. But excuse me. I was super nervous. I was getting ready to go anyways. My makeup was already done. I was just getting my hair finished. The phone rings. And I'm like, I just kind of look at the phone and I know it's an Alaska number and it's my step sister Melody. And Melody is on the other end of the phone and she's like, he passed away this morning. And even though I knew that he was going to die for 5 years and knew the day before that he could have passed away that night, I knew that morning he was gone. It didn't change the fact that immediately I was struck and went to my knees and I was vomiting. I was so inconsolable. You never know how you're going to react until something happens. I'm not really a dramatic person. I don't like drama at all. In fact, I avoid it at all costs. My sister passed out. My sister was at work. I'd actually asked Melody after I spoke to her, I said, please do not tell Kelly. I will go immediately to her work and I will take her out and I will tell her. Nope. Melody calls her and I get a call from my sister's work telling me to come and get my sister because my sister's passed out cold on the floor. Yeah. So you never know what's going to happen to you. I got really super sick and was doubled over. My sister passed out. My mom was just upset. Well, not just, but she gets to mourn the death of my father. She was married to the guy for 15 years. So she was his wife. But wondering if my father has ever tried to contact me in any way. I mean, there's times where I can hear him playing the guitar, for sure. Or songs will come into my head, like the songs that he used to play all the time. I mean, there's several that are very specific that he, were his go-tos. Even now, I mean, just thinking about it, I can hear him strumming and singing. So I'm definitely planning on trying to contact my father somehow. And if somebody would like to try to help me do that, that'd be awesome too. But I'm willing to go out on a limb and try to contact him myself. But looking back, actively wondering if he's tried to reach out other than musically. I've only heard his voice once, and that was several years ago. I was in a really bad spot, and I heard his voice, and that was the instance. I was driving in Texas, and I don't know many people who have driven through Texas in the middle of nowhere, but excuse me, if you have any kind of distress or anything, you're kind of SOL, because you're in the middle of nowhere. Like, there might be a rest area, but that's going to be about it forever. Is there a caller?
We have a call on the line.
Okay, go ahead.
Hello. Hi, Saraphine. How you doing?
Hey, who is this?
This is Jack. I'm calling from Long Island.
From Long Island?
Yes.
Where in Long Island?
Well, I grew up in Babylon, and right now I live in Deer Park.
Okay.
Love the show, and I heard the other caller talk about, that situation with somebody like putting pressure on him and everything, and something like that really happened to me back in 95. This was about a year after my mom died. I was in my apartment, and it was early in the morning, and I was getting ready to get up to go to work, and I normally sleep on my side or on my stomach when I'm sleeping, and I was like on my back, and this was probably a little bit before 6 o'clock in the morning. I put my hand behind my head, and then all of a sudden I felt this pressure. It was about the same as mine, but a little different too. So, but I just wanted to call about that, and love your show. And
thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for listening.
No problem. Take care.
Thank you. You as well. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thank you for calling.
Not a problem. Take care.
And Katie, we have any other callers or questions?
No, we don't.
It's a quiet day. Wow. Everybody had something to do today. It must be a nice day. I'm sorry. What was that?
I was going to say, it is quiet. Even the spirits are not talking today.
Oh no! Wait for it. Oh my gosh! So yeah, it's been a quiet day. I'm hoping that everybody's all right, since it's either everybody's decided to sleep in or it's just that kind of a day today, I guess. But on that, and talking to spirits and having people being held, it seems like oppressively held down. That's the second instance of a guy. I'm kind of thinking maybe it was a succubus, but I'm saying maybe. I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying they're both guys, and they're both, and especially with that other person, which I don't. Katie, did we get a name
for the last caller?
Yeah.
No, we didn't.
Okay, so Mr. No Name. So with that, it just makes me think it might have been more of a succubus kind of thing with the shh and the, it just kind of seems like it would be, even though he even said, just like the other caller said, that it didn't feel like it was sexual in nature, just that it was oppressive. So that can also be oppressive. And so with that, why don't we go into honoring our dead? One thing that I've noticed here in America, and my family is a family that usually honors Memorial Day and all of the other holidays. Excuse me. Sorry, my allergies. And how we do that is we go and put flags on the graves of our veterans. We also go and put festive flowers, but we remember our dead year round. Like with my father, my sister and I, a couple of times a year, will take white roses down to the harbor side. And the last time that we saw our father's boat off, he took a purseiner up to Alaska and he worked his way up. So we leave white roses in the water on the site that we saw him leave every time. So we just have done that ever since he's been gone. So with the flowers and with remembrances, and I know that I myself also personally will light candles and incense, or on their birthdays we'll make mention of them and give little offerings here and there, like grandparents or birthdays of people who've gone before. I know in other cultures we have Day of the Dead. We have some Asian cultures that actually not only keep their dead around for a certain specific time frames, but they actually go and dig them up periodically through the years and change their clothing. They change their clothing. They have big parties for them. Yeah, they really do. You can look this up. They have parties for them, and then they these parties are up to and including adult entertainment, use your imagination, and it's like, how would a corpse enjoy something like that? But apparently there's other places in Southeast Asia that do this as well, besides the fact of digging them up. But there's a phenomenon of corpses actually walking themselves up and back to their graves, which I tried to get footage of, but there is a little GIF of it, but it doesn't really show the corpse being animated enough to move. It shows more of somebody who is walking with the corpse itself. And this corpse has got to be, I would say, the better part of 20, 30 years gone, because it's fairly, it's not goo anymore. Let's say it looks like fruit leather on chicken bones is what it looks like. But now it's fruit leather on chicken bones with brand new chains. It's got a brand new Gucci jogging suit and shoes. I mean, these people go all out. They have a legitimate party. I mean, to the point of champagne or beers. It's usually like the favorite beers and foods, like Granny and Auntie and everybody will get together and make all these special foods that the deceased like, and put them all together and honor them that way. I know in some Latin cultures they do that as well, for Day of the Dead celebrations. And when I was looking this up, Day of the Dead, when they're honoring, it's not just with pictures, but it's with sugar skull candies. There is music and dancing and all kinds of I mean, there's the bitter and the sweet that goes with that. I mean, it's a very romantic tradition when you look at it. It's beautiful and macabre at the same time. Maybe I should start celebrating Day of the Dead besides, liking the sugar skull, this and that, or the chocolate skulls themselves. There's some really, if you haven't already looked up their culture, I definitely invite you to Google it. I mean, sure, there might be risk of some things coming up, and I don't take any responsibility for what's on Google. Sorry, I'm not going to. But educate yourself on traditions. I think this is one of those traditions that we're lacking here in America, is not only respect for the people who've gone before us, but paying our respects to, paying our respects to our deceased people and holding appropriate memorials, right, for those decedents. For even if you weren't able to do so when they first passed, because I know funerary costs are through the roof. Most people don't realize the things that they can do for their loved ones after death. There's a lot of after-death care that you can perform yourself that the funerary home doesn't actually tell you that you can do yourself, which I think is wrong. it's like taking care of, taking advantage of a situation because of people being so bereaved. But you can wash and take care of the corpse yourself if you feel comfortable to do that. You can spend time with your loved ones. You don't have to have a viewing if you don't want to. You don't have to even embalm the person. It just depends. I mean, there's legal things that go around that, but look it up. Definitely educate yourself on these things. But remembering and memorializing, I'm not saying obsessing, I'm saying having appropriate memorials and saying, yes, Grandpa Jack was a great grandpa, like my Grandpa Jack. He's the only grandfather that I was really close to growing up. And I feel robbed because I didn't get to have or be a part of a funeral. I actually was helping do plumbing in one of my ex's homes on a winter day. And I'd sat down to take a break real quick. And I was reading the newspaper and found out that my grandfather had passed away. Well, my grandmother and grandfather had a divorce when I was a kid. And I didn't get to know my real grandfather because he had passed away of a brain aneurysm. He actually dropped dead when my mother was 13. So I never got to meet him. But Grandpa Jack was my world. And then reading that was like, holy crud. I was completely taken aback. Like, nobody told us that he had passed away. So, yeah, take all of those situations in your life where you haven't had closure and you realize that the closure is something that you can perform on your own, be it a ritual, if that is your belief set, be it getting a candle from the dollar store, even if it's small like that, and lighting that candle in the memory of the person that you have lost. You can do that too. But definitely look up the cultures here in the United States and the cultures that are around the world and see how they memorialize their dead. And as of talking to spirits, I totally believe that we can be talking to spirits. So in fact, we'd probably talk to them a lot more if we knew how exactly they could hear us and see us. If we could bridge that gap, there are so many more things that we could be doing, don't you think? So thanks again for listening to Tripping the Void with myself, Saraphine Hurley. I'm here 2 to 4 every Saturday afternoon. And LNM Radio Network, if you haven't already been in the chat, please feel free to check it out, as well as the other awesome hosts and hostesses on the LNM Radio Network. We are 24/7. These folks work super hard to make sure that they provide the programming that they do for you. And it's all awesome. So you guys have an awesome weekend. Thanks for listening to Tripping the Void at LNM. And we'll see you next week.
This has been Late Night in the Midlands, Tripping the Void with Saraphine Hurley. I know I enjoyed the trip. Until next time, Saraphine Hurley with Tripping the Void. Later.